From the tiniest blink of an eye to running a full-blown marathon, every single thing you do is powered by these incredible engines inside you, your muscles. So today, we're going to dive deep into these biological powerhouses. We're going to explore everything, from the sheer power of a bicep to the constant steady rhythm of your own heart.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big picture, get to know the 3 specialized types of muscle, and then, and this is the cool part, we're going to zoom all the way in to see the tiny molecular machinery that makes a contraction happen. And finally, we'll zoom back out to appreciate all the other critical jobs our muscles are doing 24/7.
All right, let's start with what we all know. When you think muscle, you probably picture something like a bicep, right? But what if I told you that the muscle that lets you flex has a ton in common with the muscles in your stomach or even your heart? Turns out they're all built on the same 4 fundamental principles.
So what's the common thread here? What's the secret sauce that connects the powerful muscle pumping your blood with the one that lets you, just pick up your coffee cup? Well, the answer is in 4 incredible properties that every single muscle in your body shares. Think of it like this. Every muscle has 4 superpowers. First, they can stretch without breaking. That's extensibility. Then, they can snap right back to their original shape, like a rubber band. That's elasticity. They can respond to a command from your nervous system. That's excitability. And finally, the big one, the one that makes everything else possible. They can shorten with incredible force. That's contractility, and it's the very heart of all movement.
Okay, so while all muscles share those core properties, the body is smart. It uses 3 different types for very specialized jobs. Let's meet the unique cast of characters in our story of movement.
This table really breaks it down nicely. The biggest difference right off the bat is control. Skeletal muscle is voluntary. You decide to move it. But cardiac and smooth muscle, totally involuntary. You don't have to remind your heart to beat or your stomach to digest, thankfully. Now look closer at their appearance. See how skeletal and cardiac muscle look striped? They're striated. And that's not just a design choice. It's a massive clue about how they work, and we are definitely coming back to that.
All right, it's time to start peeling back the layers. To really get how a muscle contracts, we're going to focus in on skeletal muscle. We're about to take a journey from the whole muscle you can see all the way down to its smallest, most fundamental working parts. So, if you were to take a whole muscle like your bicep and zoom way in, you'd see it's made of thousands of these things, individual muscle fibers. Now, these aren't just fibers, they are the actual muscle cells themselves. And get this, they're incredibly long. Some of the ones in your leg can be almost a foot long.
But we can go deeper. Inside every single one of those long muscle fibers, you'd find hundreds of these even smaller, tightly packed cylinders called myofibrils. So if the muscle fiber is the factory, these myofibrils are the assembly lines. This is where the real work happens.
And now, we're zooming in one last time. If you look at a single myofibril, you'll see it's made of a pattern that just repeats over and over and over. And that single repeating unit is the absolute star of our show. It's the fundamental unit of all muscle contraction, the sarcomere.
This is it. This is the spot. The sarcomere is the basic building block. A whole myofibril is just a long chain of these guys linked end to end. And remember that striped appearance we saw earlier? Well, that comes from this highly organized repeating pattern of sarcomeres. Everything that powers your movement happens right here, in this tiny structure. Inside each sarcomere, we find our 2 main characters, the protein players that make it all happen, actin and myosin. Actin forms the thin filaments. And here's a great little trick to remember that. The word actin almost has the word thin right in it. Myosin makes up the thick filaments, and it's the real motor here. See those little projections on it? Those are the myosin heads, and they act like tiny molecular oars, just ready to grab on and pull. So, we have our players, and we have the stage. Now it's time to see the performance. Let's actually watch how these proteins interact in this incredible molecular dance to make a muscle shorten and generate force.
Now, this right here is probably the most important thing to get. It's called the sliding filament model for a reason. The proteins themselves, the actin and the myosin, they do not get shorter. Not at all. Imagine you have 2 ropes side by side. If you slide one past the other, the ropes stay the same length, but the amount they overlap increases. That is exactly what's happening here. The thin filaments slide over the thick ones, pulling the ends of the sarcomere closer together.
And this amazing sliding action happens in a super fast 4-step cycle. First, energize. A little energy molecule called ATP powers up the myosin head, kind of cocking it back like a spring.
Second, attach. The energized head latches onto the actin filament, forming what's called a cross bridge. Third, and this is the magic moment, the power stroke. The head snaps forward, pulling the actin filament toward the center. That's the contraction. And fourth, detach. A brand new ATP molecule comes in and binds to the myosin head, which forces it to let go of the actin so it's ready to start the whole cycle all over again, millions of times a second. And if you ever need proof of just how crucial that last detached step is, well, there's a fascinating, if slightly morbid example: rigor mortis. After death, the body stops producing ATP, and without any new ATP to bind to those myosin heads, they can't detach from the actin. They get stuck in that power stroke position, locked on, which causes the muscles to become stiff and rigid. It's a really powerful reminder that we need energy not just to contract our muscles, but to relax them too.
So, we've seen the incredible molecular details of a contraction. But now, let's zoom back out. Because all that contracting and relaxing does so much more for our bodies than just letting us walk, run, and lift things. Believe it or not, even when you are sitting perfectly still right now, your muscles are on the job. They're maintaining your posture through constant tiny little contractions. They're squeezing veins in your legs, helping to pump blood back up to your heart. The smooth muscles in your arteries are adjusting your blood pressure, while others are pushing food through your digestive system. And maybe one of the most important jobs of all, every single one of these contractions generates heat, basically acting as your body's own personal furnace.
And the perfect example of this is shivering. When you get cold, your brain sends out an alert, telling your skeletal muscles to start contracting and relaxing really fast. The point isn't to move you anywhere. The sole purpose of that reflex is to generate a ton of heat to get your body temperature back up. So the next time you feel a shiver run down your spine, just take a second, because now you can picture what's really happening. That incredible coordinated dance of millions upon millions of myosin heads, all performing a power stroke, not to move you an inch, but just to keep you alive and warm. It's a pretty amazing thought, right? Just one of the many hidden jobs of our incredible muscular system.